Hello everyone, Arrow here. The video title is correct. I am providing a tier list of all the characters in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. All-Star Battle R, a fighting game produced by Bandai Namco. This is all my opinion, so if you think I'm wrong, you are sadly mistaken. But if you're so inclined, give your opinions in the comments below. Now I will preface this now. Spoiler warnings for parts 1 to 8 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Now, we'll start this list off with the first JoJo. Jonathan Joestar. Jonathan is a pretty good character, all in all, pretty much the Shoto fighter of the roster. His playstyle is reminiscent of Ryu, with a few changes of course. His zoom punch is like Dhalsim's punches, and he has access to his sword. He is one of a few fighters with Hammond, which all it does is charge his special meter. Overall, a very solid character, being the first A-tier fighter. Next we have Will Antonio Zeppeli. Zeppeli is overall not very good. The way he plays is a zoner trying to do up-close combat, which is not very good. Doesn't really lend itself well. He also uses Hammond, which doesn't make him completely terrible. All this combined, though, makes Zeppeli our first D-tier fighter. Next up, we got Robert E.O. Speedwagon. Speedwagon is different due to his unique ability called Ogre Street. It lets him switch between two allies that aid him in battle. Overall, he hits hard, and the two allies he has don't do a whole lot outside of a move or two for both. For this, I'll put Speedwagon as the first C-tier fighter. Now, to round out the Phantom Blood characters, we have Dio Brando, the first antagonist in this roster. Dio does pretty good damage with access to a bit of healing. Plus, he also can freeze the opponent, which allows for some good combo ability. All in all, Dio is a solid fighter, and I put him in A tier alongside Jonathan. With that, though, we will go on to the characters from Battle Tendency, starting with Joseph Joestar, the second JoJo, and an all-around okay fighter. He uses Hammond, so he can charge his special meter, of course, and his attacks are okay, with him having some counters, which is nice. His ultimate attack also has a large activation box, but it still is somehow easily avoidable. All in all, I'm putting Joseph as the first B-tier character. Now for his friend, Cesar Antonio Zeppeli. Caesar is another Hammond user and an actual zoner fighter. His bubbles can deal pretty good damage with some decent up-close attacks to help him get away. Caesar also has access to a super jump, though a bit tricky to pull off. With this, I'll be putting him in A tier alongside Jonathan and Dio. Oh, wrong spot. There we go. Next, we have a very good character, Lisa. Yet another Hammond user, but she is one of the best among all of them. She has the special ability of chaining her attacks together, dealing big damage quickly. Her super is unblockable, and she is able to combo into her ultimate. Speaking of her ultimate, it turns her entire body into an activation hitbox. Plus, it is one of the strongest in the game. So yeah, you could say the MILF is goated, and also the first S-tier fighter. Now, she's followed up by Rudolf von Stroheim, the cyborg Nazi. Honestly, a really solid fighter. Similar to Speedwagon, Stroheim has an ability unique to him, that being the best science in the world. This allows him to switch between machine gun mode and UV laser mode, as a balance. UV laser mode has a time limit on it, so he can't be in it forever. Both modes are capable of dealing major damage, with UV laser mode having the possibility of a temporary infinite combo, which is pretty crazy. Also, if you're losing the battle as him, Stroheim has the ability to just blow up. It'll leave him at 1 health and unable to use his super or ultimate, but it can KO any fighter from half health. Honestly, though, with all of this, I'm gonna have to put Stroheim in S tier. Up next, we have our first Pillar Man, Wamu, one of the most powerful fighters on the roster. He has a total of 3 alternate modes, all of which boost the damage of almost all his moves when active. His Wind mode only provides the damage boost. His Vapor Barrier mode, though, provides the damage boost and gives him a projectile immunity. And his final mode becomes permanent when used. It provides the damage boost, of course, and gives all of his neutral attacks chip damage. Both of his super and his ultimate have massive hitboxes that cover almost a third of every stage. He also has a move that can hit downed opponents, and yes, it is boosted by the modes. Also, since he's a Pillar Man, non-Hammond based attacks deal less damage to him. So, needless to say, Wamu is an S tier as well. Wow, 3 S tiers in a row. That is crazy. Holy crap. Up next, we have AC/DC, a fighter who honestly is nowhere near as good as the previous 3. He has an alternate mode like Wamu, but it's only the one, and when it's active, if the opponent is near AC/DC, they'll slowly start to take damage over time. And when I say slowly, I mean slowly. But it doesn't help that a good amount of his attacks are meant to keep the opponent away, so there's not a good way to utilize it. He can at least do decent damage, and he is a Pillar Man. But another thing against him is his wonky movement. Overall, AC/DC isn't complete garbage, but he isn't really good either. So I'm going to put him in D tier with Zeppeli. Now for the final battle tendency character and the third Pillar Man, Kars, the big bad of battle tendency. He too has only the one mode, which boosts the boosts the damage of any attack that uses his bone blades, which, to be fair, is about half his move set. He does pretty well, though his ultimate is interesting. Kars is one of 3 transformation ultimates in the game, though of the 3, it is the slowest, taking about 5 seconds to fully complete, and any attack, except for a counter, of course, is able to interrupt it, causing it to fail. If you can pull it off, though, Kars transforms into the Ultimate Life Form and drastically changes his moveset. Ultimate Life Form Kars gains access to multiple ranged attacks. He gets some attacks that have like a super far reach, and now he can fly and air dodge. But due to it being so difficult to attain, you almost never get it. So with all that in mind, Kars is a solid B tier character. Next up, we got Jotaro Kujo, the flagship JoJo. When you think JoJo, you think Jotaro. The first stand user to appear on this list, with him wielding Star Platinum. Overall, a good character, hits hard and fast, and has time stop, which is really good. Plus his move Starfinger has a good range on it. Honestly, A tier for him. Next we got Old Joseph Joestar, the final Hammond user. He also has access to his stand Hermit Purple, which he uses in both of his movesets. Overall, he does alright, with Hermit Purple providing some range to a few attacks. Honestly, he's just as good as Young Joseph, so B tier. Now we got Mohammed Avdal, the user of the stand Magician's Red. He's alright, doing decently well, nothing major. He has a homing attack, but it disappears if he gets hit, so like there's nothing big there either. So I'll be putting Avdal here in C tier next to Speedwagon. Next up, we have Noriaki Kakyoin, another Zoner fighter, and the user of Hierophant Green, which personally is one of my favorite stands. He does pretty decent, having good range with most of his attacks. Kakyoin is also capable of creating a barrier to provide a bit more space between him and the opponent. Generally, a pretty good character. B tier. Next up, we got Jean-Pierre Polnareff, a Frenchman and the user of Silver Chariot. He moves pretty quickly, and if you use his super, it makes him even faster. Polnareff does pretty well and has an attack that's both a reflect and an anti-air. Honestly, a good character as well. B tier as well. Now we got Iggy, the dog. Iggy is the smallest fighter and the user of the stand The Fool. Iggy has a lower damage output than most, but is also quite fast. Also, due to his small size, he is unable to be grabbed. Overall, he's alright, and I'll be putting him in C tier. Now we got Whole Horse. Whole Horse is a zoner, but the thing is, he's the worst zoner in the game. His bullets don't do much, and while he can activate his stand Emperor to boost them, it doesn't really do much. Plus, he doesn't have any good way to keep the opponent away. But I will say, he does have a very unique mechanic that only he has. That mechanic being sexism. Yeah. What it does is it provides Whole Horse with a 10% damage boost, but a slower charge on his special meter. This passive ability only comes into effect when the opponent is female, which is only 6 fighters in the entire roster of 60. All of these combined make Whole Horse our first F tier character. Now we got Mariah. Her and her stand Bastet are a fun combo. She has a magnetization gauge that activates when the opponent touches Bastet. It goes up when the opponent is near Mariah, and it goes down when they're not. Simple. All it really does is boost the damage of Mariah's moves. Overall, she's alright, and I'll put her in B tier. Pet Shop. A bird. Also the user of the stand Horus. As one would expect, Pet Shop can fly, similar to how Cars does it in his ultimate life form. Though he does have a gauge that limits the amount of time he can fly as balance. Honestly, his attacks are pretty good, being fairly quick and doing decent damage. And he's also able to use these attacks when he is flying, though you have to be able to make sure they can hit the opponent. So I think, honestly, this makes Pet Shop deserving of A tier. And next up, we have Vanilla Ice and his stand Cream. Clever, right? Dual musical reference and pun. Araki knew what he was doing. Anyways, he does decent damage with him having a special gauge for when he activates his stand. The reason it exists is because when Cream is active, it has one attack. That attack being invincible, unblockable, and can be used in the air, and can hit a downed opponent. Every time it's used, though, it significantly lowers the gauge, and when empty, Cream is immediately deactivated. So, like, you only get to use it, like, 3 times at max. He does all, and other than that, he does alright on his own. I'm going to be putting him in B tier. Now, for the big boy, Dio, the version of Dio that everyone knows. His stand the world functions similarly to Star Platinum, hits hard and fast with time stop. Dio himself can throw a knife, he has a self-heal, which also does better if the opponent is a JoJo, so there's that bonus. Overall, Dio is an A tier character. Now we got Josuke Hikashikata, a solid character. His stand Crazy Diamond is similar to Star Platinum and the World, though it doesn't have the time stop like they do. He's able to create a barrier to deal some damage, and he also has like a bearing that he can shoot off. Also, if you insult his amazing hair, he becomes angry and negates all knockback while actively walking towards the opponent on his own. Honestly, I'm going to be saying B tier for him. Now we got Jotaro Kujo Part 4. I'm going to be completely honest here. There's not really any difference between this Jotaro and the previous Jotaro, so I guess A tier by default, I guess. Next up we got Okuyasu Nijimura, a very up-close fighter. His stand the hand can cause the opponent to be pulled towards Okuyasu with certain moves. He does decent damage, though quite a few attacks have very slow startup. So I'm going to be putting him in C tier here. Next up we have Koichi Hirose, a reliable pick and utilizes all 3 acts of echoes. Both his super and ultimate can cause an effect called 3 freeze, which forces the opponent into crouching until the effect wears off. But other than that, there isn't anything super notable about his moveset, so I'll be putting him in C tier as well. Next we got Yukiko Yamagishi, the user of Love Deluxe. While she doesn't do a lot of damage, she is able to use her stand to boost strength as well. And she does have a bit of range with some of her attacks, but overall she's alright, so I'll be putting her in C tier as well. Now we have Rohan Kishibe, the user of Heaven's Door, and probably the most broken character in the game. First off, he doesn't have any normal neutral attacks. They are all replaced with the move Safety Lock, and what it basically does is it prevents your opponent from using the corresponding button for about 7 seconds, and this can't be countered. He also has a command throw that prevents your opponent from using things such as Haman, the various modes that the Pillarmen have, or the stands, or any other kind of ability like that. His super will lock all non-neutral attacks, and his ultimate literally locks everything except for moving for about 10 seconds. So fighting against Rohan is like playing pretend with that one kid who was always saying, "Nuh-uh, you can't do that." Needless to say, he is S tier by default. And now we got Shigekyo Yangu. Literally, this is the embodiment of the kid that says, "Nuh-uh, you can't do that." And he is honestly kind of crap. His whole thing is based around his stand Harvest, which is always active. Nearly every move involves Harvest. And if he runs out of Harvest that he can use, because it's a colony stand, but if he runs out, he can't do anything. Honestly, he can run out very quickly. So honestly, he is our next F tier character. And he is way different from our next fighter here, Yuya Fungami. Fungami's stand Highway Star is extremely powerful, providing him with multiple attacks that heal him, 2 of which being both his super and his ultimate attacks. He also has an attack that starts constantly draining from health from the opponent until Fungami is hit, or uses Highway Star in another attack. In addition, not only do the attacks heal him, but they also steal charge from the opponent's special meter. All of this culminating in Fungami being the 5th S tier character on this tier list. Now we follow him up with Keicho Nijimura, Okuyasu's brother and the user of Bad Company. He's an interesting one with the ability to have his stand attack while he attacks the opponent himself. He can also have his stand placed landmines, which if the opponent steps on them will send them flying. Overall, he's a pretty solid character, so B tier for him. Next up, we got Akira Otoshi, the user of Red Hot Chili Pepper. He gets a special gauge relating to Red Hot Chili Pepper's charge. If the gauge is empty, then Akira is screwed, as he really can't do anything now. He's able to charge Red Hot Chili Pepper, though while doing so, he is extremely vulnerable. All in all, he's not as good as he could be, and I'm going to be putting him in C tier. Now, you might know this next guy. His name is Yoshikage Kira. He's 33 years old. His house is in the northeast section of Morio, where all the villas are, and he's not married. He works as an employee for the Kame-yu department stores, and he gets home every day by 8 p.m. at the latest. He doesn't smoke, but he occasionally drinks. Okay, I'll stop. I'll stop. Anyways, Kira is pretty good with his stand Killer Queen. He can deal fairly good damage, and his ultimate utilizes Sheer Heart Attack, which will chase the opponent until it hits something. Honestly, I'm putting him in B tier because the next character is better, and that character being Kosaku Kawajiri, formerly known as Yoshikage Kira. Honestly, this character is better than normal Kira. He has Stray Cat with him, so he can shoot bubble bombs towards the opponent, and his ultimate uses Bites the Dust, which will, in fact, rewind the battle timer and reverse any effects that have happened. For example, if Kars achieves becoming Ultimate Life Form, Bites the Dust will rewind that and return Kars to normal as long as he lives it. Overall, this is the better Kira and in A tier. Next up, we have Giorno Giovanna, son of Dio and the user of the stand Gold Experience. He does pretty well with him having access to a healing move, though the startup on said move is quite long and easily interruptible. And Giorno's ultimate is the second transformation ultimate in the game. Now this one is a bit quicker to pull off, and if you do succeed, Gold Experience will become Gold Experience Requiem. Now, unlike Kars from before, GER is only around for a limited time. With GER though, Giorno can now evade attacks easier. He has an unblockable projectile, a high damaging move, and the ability to negate attacks. Now, Giorno would be S tier if it weren't for the fact that GER is only obtained with his ultimate and only around for a limited time. So I'll be putting Giorno in A tier. Next up, we got Bruno Bucciarati. An alright character. His stand Sticky Fingers gives him some solid moves, but nothing crazy. He does have a revive if he's about to lose the match. So I'd say B tier for Bruno. Next up, we got Leone Abbacchio. He's an interesting one. Depending on if Moody Blues is active or not, Abbacchio's moveset is drastically different. When not active, Abbacchio gets into a special ability called Replay, Moody Blues will appear and use the last move Abakio used. And then when active, they fight like most other characters. Overall, he's alright and B tier as well. Next up, we got Guido Mista. He's all about his gun. Pretty much all of his abilities relate to it. Whether it being his stand Sex Pistols entering the gun, him reloading a gun, or his odd mechanic where if he takes damage while he has 4 bullets left, like specifically 4 bullets left in the gun, his special meter will go down the same amount as well. Overall, he deals okay damage and the bullets getting more powerful the more Sex Pistols is in the gun. Other than that, though, nothing super crazy, so I'll be putting him in C tier. Next up, we have Narancia Girga, the user of Aerosmith, and he probably has the lowest damage output, kind of tied with Iggy. But it is like kind of fast. Still not like. And when I say low damage output, I'm talking like 8 points of damage for some of these attacks. But with like his speed and all is like, it's alright, but overall he's just not as good, and I'll be putting him in D tier. Now we got Panicotta Fugo. Fugo is very deadly in this game. His stand Purple Haze has capsules that will break during the battle, causing a virus cloud to release that will deal damage over time if entered. His super will also do this while restoring some capsules, and his ultimate will transform his stand into Purple Haze Distortion. This transformation will be permanent and provides a damage boost to both his attacks and his virus, plus the fact that he just hits hard normally, so I think this makes Fugo deserving of S tier. Next up, we got Trish Una. Honestly, a pretty basic fighter compared to the rest of the roster. She has her stand Spice Girl, and that's about it in terms of special abilities. Her craziest thing is that she has a reflect, but other than that, it's your basic punch, kick, rapid punch with a stand, and an okay super and ultimate. I'll be putting her in C tier. Next up, we got Prosciutto and Pesci, the only duo character in the entire roster. The main fighter of the group being Prosciutto, who can switch between having Pesci aid him and using his stand Grateful Dead. His attacks with Pesci aren't all that good, with the opponent with most just bringing the opponent closer, which with most characters on this roster is not that good of an idea. Meanwhile, his attacks with the Grateful Dead mostly fill an age engage he has. The age engage does help restrict your opponent's movements, but it does deplete way too easily to be of any real use. Overall, Prosciutto and Pesci aren't very good, hence them being F tier. Next up, we got Gyakio, an alright character. His stand White Album gives him some ice-based attacks, which he can use to freeze the opponent for a moment. His super puts him in a state that reflects projectiles for a bit. All in all, though, he's not that great, so I'll be putting him in C tier. Next up, we have Risotto Nero, a solid character using his stand Metallica. He's capable of turning invisible, which negates any projectile and throw attack, but when he is hit or does an attack of his own, the invisibility goes away. He has a few ranged attacks and the ability to take away an opponent's ability to run, which is pretty nice. So I'd say Risotto is a B tier. Next up, we have Diavolo, or as my sibling likes to call him, Stripper Man. He is the user of King Crimson and is kind of counter heavy. He has multiple counters, two of which being both his super and his ultimate. His super just makes him avoid every attack for a short amount of time, while his ultimate is the highest damaging move in the entire game. Honestly, I think this character's an A tier. Next up, we have Jolene Cujo, an alright character. Honestly, she's not as good as the other JoJo's. Her stand stone free gives her a bit of range with its strings, but overall it's alright. I'm going to be putting Jolene in C tier. Next we have Aramis Costello. Using her stand Kiss, she's able to double her limbs, which in this game's context will make her hit harder. But if she gets knocked down, then the effect goes away and she takes damage, depending on how powered up she is. Honestly, I don't think she's very good, so D tier for Aramis. Next we have Foo Fighters, the Colony of Plankton. They're actually pretty good. FF is a zoner with great mobility. They deal solid damage, and it does get difficult to hit them. But their downside is that their FF shots have limited bullets, which require you to replenish them. Their super doesn't deal any damage at all, since all it does is slightly heal FF, restore the bullets, and boost the damage of their next shot. And so while really good speed and damage wise, I think their downsides balance them out perfectly to make them a B tier. Next up we have Narciso Anisui, the user of Diver Down. Honestly, he doesn't have much outside of his neutrals. With his stand, he can create a trap spot to deal damage, but I'm going to be giving Anisui a C tier ranking here. Next we have Weather Report. An interesting character. Him with his stand Weather Report. Yeah, the stand and the dude have the same name. It's odd. They have some pretty interesting moves. He's able to make a thundercloud shield around him, which will block projectiles and deal damage to any character that does a melee attack for a short time. Weather also just has some good attacks as well, so I'll be putting him in B tier as well. Now we have Enrico Pucci, the gay priest. With his stand Whitesnake, he gets the special ability to steal various things from opponents via discs. Basically, he'll lock away that ability until the disc is retrieved. Pucci can also retrieve it, thus keeping it locked for longer. He drops the disc whenever he's hit, so it can be pretty quick to get it back. He also has a few counters to help him. He's pretty good, so we'll be putting this version in B tier. Now for the other version, Enrico Pucci Final. Alright, so this Pucci has all the things the previous Pucci has, plus a bit more. So, all the stuff that the previous Pucci has, plus we'll start with Sea Moon. So first, to get Sea Moon, you have to have Pucci speak the 14 words to the green baby. It's interesting, yeah. And now Sea Moon has some of the hardest hitting moves with ton of knockback. It also causes this bleed effect, dealing damage over time. And now with this, you're able to use Pucci's ultimate, which is the third transformation ultimate, and it can only be used once per match. If successful, like, you have to have it succeed in order for it to count for the once per match thing. But if successful, Pucci's stand becomes made in heaven. His sprint and backdash turn him invisible and can go through opponents. Also, his attacks become super fast, and he can chain his aerial attacks. Needless to say, Pucci becomes nearly unstoppable when he has Made in Heaven, but due to all the steps and time it actually takes to achieve Made in Heaven, I'm putting Final Pucci in A tier. Up next, we have the former pro jockey from Danville, Kentucky, Johnny Joestar. Okay, so now I want to start off this part here by mentioning that all the Steel Ball Run characters, when chosen, cause 3 parts of the Holy Corpse to spawn in the arena. Only the Part 7 characters can collect these, and they get boosted for each part they collect. Also, Johnny here is the first of 4 characters to be on horseback, and his Stand Tusk will also evolve during the course of the match, which also changes his moveset. So, as I say, he is probably one of the most complex characters I've ever seen in a fighting game. So, on to how Johnny is. So we're going to start with the fact that he's a bit of a zoner. And what I, kind of, really, and what I mean by kind of is when he's off his horse, named Slow Dancer, he is a zoner. But when he's on Slow Dancer, he's more melee combat oriented. His first super will evolve his stand into Tusk Act 2, and then the super changes into a different one, which will evolve it into Tusk Act 3, and then the same thing happens again to evolve it into Tusk Act 4. Or if you use his ultimate, it'll just evolve straight to Act 4. This isn't even mentioning what the Holy Corpse parts give him. One part gives him a 20% increase to damage. The second gives him super armor on any attack that uses his nail bullets. And if he has all 3, then his special meter charges faster. Also, Johnny can't use his legs. He is, I kid you not, he is paralyzed from the waist down, even in the game. So when he's not on Slow Dancer, he cannot walk. So I don't even know how to rank this damn twink cowboy. I'll just throw him in B tier, I guess. Next we got Gyro Zappelli. He's also got a bit to him because of his spinning balls. He's also got his horse Valkyrie, so it's already interesting start here. So my Gyro's main thing is his balls. He can charge them up, which will cause them to deal more damage. He also can collect parts of the Holy Corpse, which give him different boosts. The first one gives him a new attack, which lets his balls hover in the air. The second one gives him super armor when he's throwing his balls, and having all 3 parts puts him in Golden Spin mode. Golden Spin mode is also achieved when via having his balls be fully charged, though it will go down after a bit if that's the case. I'm just gonna put him in B tier as well. Next up we got Diego Brando, an alternate version of Dio. The main difference between this one and the OG Dio is that Diego has his horse Silver Bullet, and he can turn into a dinosaur. I'm not joking. It's a Diosaur, and this is what it looks like. Yeah. So he's fast, hits pretty well, and his dinosaur form has constant passive super armor. He turns into a dinosaur via his super. Also, when he collects the Holy Corpse parts, he gains a new attack. His damage output is increased, and his special meter charges faster, is what the 3 parts do. Now time for, better rank him first. So we'll have him A tier, and now for Parallel World Diego Brando. Yeah, we'll have you after this guy. So yeah, next Parallel World Diego Brando. Again, not joking. This Diego has the world, and his horse Silver Bullet. He can throw knives, set up a barbed wire trap, and spill gasoline to create a puddle of gasoline. Plus, due to him having the world, this Diego can stop time. The Holy Corpse parts give him a speed boost for one part. He can create a second gasoline puddle with 2 parts, and having all 3 parts makes him better at blocking. I'm just going to put him A tier as well. Now, finally, for the final Steel Ball Run character, we have the 23rd President of the United States of America, Funny Valentine. Also, the user of Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, aka D4C. Luckily, he doesn't have a horse. Good. And honestly, he's simple until he gets the corpse parts. But things get crazy once he does get those. The first one allows him to block for longer. Getting the second one increases his defense by 10%. And then when he has all 3, he gets the ability known as D4C Love Train. D4C Love Train will make Valentine invincible to all non-super/ultimate related projectiles and traps. He gets a 25% defense boost, and certain skills in using D4C will have boosted damage. And one final thing, if he has all 3 corpse parts and a full special meter, he can restore his health to full. Of course, though, he has to have all of that and hold on to the 3 corpse parts for all the fancy stuff and all that. So honestly, I'm putting him in B tier due to all of the things that he needs to do. Next up, we have Josuke Higashikata. No, it's, as you can see, it is not the same guy from before. This one has the stand soft and wet, which gives him bubbles. Honestly, he moves pretty fast but doesn't hit very hard. He has some projectiles which help, and all in all, he's a C tier fighter. But this next character, Wonder of You. Ignoring Rohan Kishibe, Wonder of You is probably the most powerful character in the game. First and foremost, it's a zoner. It has multiple great moves that hit from afar, and now you might think that as balance, it sucks with up close battle. But Wonder of You has the best non-super or ultimate counter in the game. It can counter any non-grab, super, or ultimate attack. It destroys all other projectiles and can guard break. And if you think that's bad, it gets worse. It has its own mechanic named Force of Calamity, which makes Wonder of You stronger the less health it has. And it can't be grabbed. Also, its super is a full stage attack and can damage you even if you're down or blocking. Its ultimate is a counter that at minimum could take away half your health, and at max could almost KO any character from full health. Now you're probably thinking, this character is in no way balanced. Well, what if I told you Wonder of You can't run? That's good balance, right? Oh wait, no, never mind. Wonder of You can teleport. Easy S tier. Now for the final character, Ikuro Hashizawa. Now, something interesting about this character here is that he isn't actually a JoJo character. Yeah, he's from another series that Araki created titled Bao the Visitor. I have yet to actually check out the series myself. I've been planning to. So anyways, he's a pretty decent character, with his main thing being the Bao Armed Phenomenon. This allows him to put super armor on the startup of any of his attacks when it's activated. He also has a passive heal when he has low health, And while nowhere as good as Wonder of You, he's still a solid character, and honestly, I'm gonna put him in A tier, making that a pretty good end to this tier list. And so now, with that, thank you for watching, and remember, if you disagree with me, debate me in the comments with your incorrect opinions. And with that, I will see ya. Bye.